Hey everyone, it's me John again, and welcome to another Geek and Dorks review. This is for the film Pan. And before I went out to see this one, I was trying to figure out what to see to review for you guys. And the movie theater right now, box office is being dominated by Goosebumps. I hope to have a review of that for you next week. However, I was kind of strapped in terms of interest for finding something that I thought would be enjoyable for me to go see and then review for you. I was really caught between, I thought I wanted to see Pan. I'm a big Hugh Jackman fan, and the new Steven Spielberg movie with Tom Hanks, I think it's called The Bridge of Spies, or A Bridge of Spies, or something about a bridge and some spies. However, I watched Bridge of Spies. I watched some trailers, and man, that just looked like a snooze fest to me. So I looked into some reviews, and I don't usually do that before I go see a movie because I don't want to taint my judgment about the film. However, the reviews for Pan were just slaying it. I mean, just tearing it to pieces. Right now, it gets a 25% on Rotten Tomatoes, 36% at Metacritic, 1 out of 4 according to RogerEbert.com. And some of the stuff I saw when I was reading reviews about it this morning, a movie so resoundingly god-awful that you have to see it. And honestly, that review is part of why I decided, okay, I got to go see what this is about and why people think it's so bad. And now that I'm back from it, I can tell you, I don't know if there's a smear campaign going on against this movie or what, but a lot of the stuff that the reviews were complaining about, I just did not experience while watching this film. Quite honestly, it makes some of these reviewers sound like old biddies in my mind. And I think they've forgotten what it was like to be a kid and enjoy a film. This movie reminds me a lot of there was a lot of movies in the 80s where there would be a kid protagonist and he would have to really save the day and save everyone else. I mean, when I was young and I would watch those movies, it almost kind of annoyed me because it was a writing mechanic that we used so often. Nowadays, we really don't see it a whole lot, and this film treads into that a little bit, and it felt good to see it again. Kind of reminded me a little bit of The Never-Ending Story. On top of that, the visuals in this film are really well done. Of course, there's a ton of CGI. I saw things in this film that I have not seen before, which included, now we've seen flying pirate ships in a couple of movies, kind of made me think of Baron Munchausen. But having World War II aircraft, military aircraft that's engaging those pirate ships, that scene in particular really stood out for me, and that's not a spoilery scene. That happens very early in the movie. That's another thing. These reviews that I was reading about this film today, for some reason, a lot of people seem to think that just retelling the story that occurs in the movie is a movie review. I guess the term review at a very simple nature means that. But I was really disappointed with the quality of writing at a lot of these websites about this movie. And I got to be honest with you, I'm seeing much better movie reviews done on YouTube. I think there's just something about how the content's being handled there where I don't know if people get paid per word or something, but man, some of those reviews I read were just quite frankly garbage in my eyes. They weren't helpful at all in terms of the story. Or not the story, in terms of true critical review. Should I go see this or not? Why might I like it as opposed to other people? One of the things that was highly complained about in the reviews I read was the inclusion of 2 different songs. I believe there was a Ramones song, I can't remember off the top of my head, and Smells Like Teen Spirit. And one reviewer even said that, wow, this is a total ripoff of like a Baz Luhrmann film. In no way were those scenes ripping off Baz Luhrmann films. That is a totally ridiculous comment. The songs were being sung as pirate chants, and it was actually kind of cool when your brain was tickled with, hey, I think I know those lyrics, but these pirates are singing it like it's a song that they'd be singing on the ship while they're sailing somewhere. Oh wait, isn't that Nirvana? Hey, it was not played as a musical, not even close. So to compare that to the scenes that Baz Luhrmann does, like in a film called Moulin Rouge or something, I think is totally laughable. And I don't want to make this a review about the reviews, but I just got to tell you, the reviews just were not very, they were extremely slanted against this movie, and I still am trying to figure out why. So let's go through the basics of it real quick. The director is Joe Wright. Joe Wright we know from also directing Anna Karenina, Hannah, The Soloist, Atonement, Pride and Prejudice. Soloist, I think this guy has actually been nominated for several Oscars. And I gotta say, he had a great director of photography on this film, and they did a great job incorporating a lot of CGI. Of course, it's CGI, so some of it is extremely noticeable that, well, you know, hey, that bird is obviously CGI. But the way that they used it to tell this story, and the story is supposed to feel like a fantasy, the CGI elements worked really well for me. In particular, there are some moments where they have imagery. There's two scenes in particular where they're talking in terms of flashback. And for those specific moments, they do some pretty interesting imagery. One of them is told through these kind of wood carvings that is really cool. And another is told in this kind of star sparkly imagery. And those scenes really also stand out in my mind as being just kind of a visual treat. So I thought Joe Wright did a pretty good job on this. It was written by Jason Fuchs, and Jason Fuchs, I took a look at his history, and he's only got 7 writing credits. The biggest thing you probably know him for is Ice Age Continental Drift, and it looks like he's writing the upcoming Wonder Woman film, and after seeing this movie, I'm a little nervous about that. One of my knocks against this movie is I was going into it expecting a true Peter Pan prequel, and essentially kind of explaining to us how that character comes to be. This movie really feels like it was supposed to be part of its own trilogy, and that whole trilogy is supposed to be Peter Pan prequel. By the time you get to the end of this first movie, you don't really learn a whole lot about why this kid Peter becomes Peter Pan. There's only minor suggestions about how the Lost Boys get started. There's no explanation even about his hat. Just all of a sudden he's wearing, hey, that's the kind of hat that Peter Pan would wear. For me, the writing on this avoided probably the biggest key storyline that it could have addressed and made a very, very good film. And it's weird because it was set up in a way that this story is supposed to be about Peter and Captain Hook before he's a captain, but Hook and them working together. Essentially, at some point, they were helping each other out, and that relationship doesn't really develop, and it definitely doesn't develop anywhere to the point of you understanding why Captain Hook would later despise Peter Pan. Pretty much at the end of the movie, they are the same characters that they are at the start of the movie, and that's always a really hard indicator for me that something has gone wrong in the writing. Now, this movie focuses a lot on action segments. Those work very well. The narrative between Blackbeard, played by Hugh Jackman, and Peter is a little light in terms of their interpersonal relationship, but fair enough, and has the bones of what would be a good story. Honestly, I feel like the script is one rewrite away from being a decent movie. If they could have just brought in, and you know, when you look at writing credits, it's odd because usually on a film like this, they probably had about a half dozen writers, but only one person gets the writing credit. Yeah, figure that out, Hollywood. But I'm sure if there would have been one more rewrite with a fresh take on this, that they could have pulled this movie into completely different territory and told a very compelling story, which would have been great. The biggest knock against this movie for me is an actor named Garrett Hedlund. And unfortunately, he's the one that played, I think it's James Hook in this. Well, they just credited it as Hook. But he's the one that plays the soon-to-be Captain Hook. And for some reason in this movie, they depict him as a cowboy. And for some reason, they wrote that character like he's Indiana Jones. He has a bunch of kind of snarky one-liners. He's constantly saving Peter. And that's where this movie also treads off the rails for me a little bit. Peter is a very passive character throughout this movie, even though it's all about him and it circles around him and what's happening to him and his supposed destiny about becoming Peter Pan. He doesn't do a lot to affect what's happening to him. A lot of it is him being saved by Hook and also being saved by Tiger Lily, which was played by Rooney Mara. And if you've watched my Geek and Dorks reviews, you've heard the name Kate Mara come up quite a bit, and I am not a big fan of Kate Mara. Apparently Rooney is her younger sister, and I have to say, Rooney is a much better actress than Kate. Honestly, Kate should go spend some time with Rooney and try to pick up the craft. I was a little worried when I saw the name Mara, and I was like, oh crap, am I going to get another one of these, half-assed performances that keeps taking me out of the moment? Not at all. Rooney does a great job in the role of Tiger Lily. That was also a point of contention for some of the reviews that I read, because Tiger Lily is being played by a white woman, and at least in the Disney film Peter Pan, I know that they showed that whole tribe as Native American. Now, I don't know if that goes back to the source information, if it goes back to the books, because I've never read the books, but I can tell you, even as a kid, I was always extremely uncomfortable with the interpretation of Native Americans in that Disney film. It feels kind of racist to me. So understanding this is Neverland, understanding that things don't work the same in Neverland, how would a tribe even come to be? If people never age there, do you really have children? Probably not, because they would stay babies and you'd have a tribe of babies. So this tribe was shown as a multicultural, multinational tribe, and that worked perfectly well for me. The only knock I have about all of that tribe is, for some reason, Rooney Mara was wearing, I think they were Doc Martens. I don't get it. Don't know why. Did not go with the rest of her costume, not even in the least bit. And how the hell did she get Doc Martens there? Well, like I said, maybe she brought them from the real world into Neverland, but they stuck out like a sore thumb. Just all of a sudden you see these molded rubber soles attached to these boots on the bottom of her shoes that just kind of took me out of the film just for a little moment every time they popped in. So back to Garrett Hedlund. Now, it's funny because while I was watching him, getting more and more annoyed by his performance, because it really seemed like he was doing a bad Jack Nicholson impression, or even a Christian Slater, which some people would say Christian Slater is basically a bad Jack Nicholson impression. I mean, literally, I wanted him out of the film. And quite honestly, there was moments where I felt like I wanted to punch him, because he was just doing overindulgent. Every single word coming out of his mouth was so important, and he would keep flashing this stupid, cheesy, wannabe Jack Nicholson smile at the end of it. I came home and looked up what he's done before. He's got a lot of credits. He played Sam Flynn in Tron Legacy. And he did a great job playing Sam Flynn in Tron Legacy. Something just went really wrong with this performance here, and essentially it's him doing a impression the whole time, and I personally don't believe that's acting, and it comes off extremely cheesy and pulls me way out of the movie. Easily, he is the worst part of this film, and I think that performance is a big part of the reason why this film isn't doing good. I went and saw this movie, admittedly, in the middle of the day, like I usually do when I'm doing these reviews, but I have never been literally the only person in the audience, and I was. And this movie has only been out a couple weeks. Not only that, it's not even running its own full theater at my local theater. They've already got it down to like 3 showings a day in that theater, so they're mixing in another movie on top of it. Doesn't look good for this film in terms of financial success, and I really wish that they would have, like I said, another major rewrite, fixed the Garrett Hedlund acting thing, which we know he can act. There was just something gone extremely bad about the character choice there. Not dressed him as a cowboy, which still boggles my mind and doesn't make sense, and maybe given him a backstory as to why he would later want to become a captain. Thinking like a prequel there. And maybe given us some events where we would start to understand that maybe he would turn on Peter in the future. And I can assure you there is nothing like that happening in this film whatsoever, which is a big missed opportunity. And that's honestly what this film feels like. It's enjoyable. If I had to go back and see either this or The Martian, I would definitely go see this. It, for me personally, was much more enjoyable than The Martian. It's a totally different type of film, and The Martian is mega successful compared to this. But there's just something in this that is truer to what I consider entertainment, interesting sets, interesting costume design. I just wish that there was more character development, a bit of a better script, and a better acting performance from Garrett. The kid that plays Peter does a pretty good job, but unfortunately we never get to see him transform into that kind of snarky Peter Pan that we all know and love from, in particular, the Disney cartoon. But they even touched on it in Hook a little bit, where Robin Williams eventually got back to being that snarky kind of kid having fun attitude. And unfortunately, Levi Miller, the kid playing Peter in this, never gets even close to that. Outside of that, he does a great job. He's a good-looking kid. He seemed to fit the role that they had written. It's just the role that was written doesn't feel a whole lot like Peter Pan. So, all in all, IMDb has this rated as a 6.1 out of 10. For me personally, I'd probably put it at a 5. I think if you have kids, I'm pretty sure that they would enjoy a lot of it. I think adults would enjoy a lot of it too. I think they released it at a really bad time. This movie does not feel, definitely not related to Halloween in any way. This feels like a Thanksgiving release, or possibly even Christmas, but more like in that holiday area. And from what I understand, it was supposed to originally come out as a summer blockbuster. I'm glad they didn't do that, because it definitely would have tanked in that type of a time slot. But it feels like it came out at just a bad time of the year. I mean, right now you've got Goosebumps and Hotel Transylvania just eating up the box office. And I think that's taking a lot of families away that would be potential audience members for this film. So I highly doubt we're going to see a Pan 2. But like I said, there is a lot to be enjoyed here. If you're looking to escape the reality of this world for a couple hours, I think you might enjoy this. But that being said, I give it a 5 out of 10. So that's it for this review. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'm looking forward to reading those and catching up with you. I'll see you at the end of the week with a brain scratch. Thanks for joining me here on Geek and Dorks, and take care.